The US car manufacturers are deeply alarmed at this because a lot of the parts, even of the US made cars, are manufactured elsewhere.
Some breaking news to bring you this evening, though. It looks like Donald Trump has really ramped up the US demands on the terms of the minerals deal between the United States and Ukraine. The latest proposal looks to assume control of all of Kyiv's critical energy and mineral resources. That goes further than the first draft of terms left unsigned on President Zelensky's desk. I probably should say the last draft as known about. Let's welcome in Harriet Alexander, who is the US senior features reporter for The Times and The Sunday Times. Good evening, Harriet.
Hello, Kate.
Thanks for being with us. Let's just take a look at this breaking story then on the minerals deal. It looks like the Trump administration's driving a hard bargain. Is this Donald Trump sort of throwing his toys out of the pram, if you will, or can he make a good case for saying that perhaps Zelensky is not acting quickly enough here, is not towing the line, is not getting the business of it done?
Well, Zelensky has said that Zelensky is in Paris at the moment, and he said that the US is constantly changing the goalposts, just changing its desires for what it wants. Other MPs in Ukraine have been even more harsh in their assessment of it. One called it robbery. Another said that it was a horrible arrangement. Essentially, it is, as you said, a much broader deal, which would see the US taking control of Ukrainian mineral rights, but also oil and gas, a lot of that. And that's really caused a lot of alarm. It would involve the setting up of a 5-person overseer board, but 3 of those people would be American, which essentially gives them a veto. So this is something that the Ukrainians are really not very happy about.
Where does this leave matters?
That's a really good question. I think perhaps Trump has actually been surprised that it's been this complicated to get a deal at all. If you remember, he campaigned saying he was going to end the fighting on day one. He's been trumpeting his close relationship with Vladimir Putin. Steve Witkoff, his envoy, has been saying that they have a great relationship, and that Witkoff said, that he personally admires Putin and thinks that he's a good man and someone they can do business with. So it is taking longer than they thought. It's the Russians who seem to be very much non-committal on all of this. And Trump is pushing the Ukrainians to agree to these terms. But whether anything will come of it is anyone's guess, quite frankly.
Well, OK, the second big topic of conversation, tariffs. Donald Trump announcing a new import taxes of 25% on cars and car parts coming into the United States. Here was Donald Trump announcing it yesterday.
And we're going to charge countries for doing business in our country and taking our jobs, taking our wealth, taking a lot of things that they've been taking over the years. They've taken so much out of our country, friend and foe. And frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe. And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
That was Donald Trump, there you go, announcing tariffs. Well, this has been met with rejection, or has been rejected by leaders around the world. France's President Macron branded the move a waste of time. Canada called it a direct attack. Germany, also a big player in the US car market. Here's what Benjamin Tellis, a former senior research fellow at the German Council on Foreign Relations, told me earlier.
Well, Germany should stand strong, as Europe should as a whole. And this has been clear that even actually Scholz has said this. So too has outgoing Vice Chancellor and Economy Minister Robert Habeck. They've both talked about the need to strongly stand up to what Trump is doing. I would expect to see the same from Merz, who again has talked about the need to be independent from the United States.
That was me speaking to Benjamin Tellis a little bit earlier on. The US imported about 8 million cars last year, accounting for $240 billion worth of trade. There must be commentary over there, Harriet, about how this is not a wise move. Apart from some of the pickup trucks, the majority of Americans drive cars that are produced elsewhere. What's been the reaction domestically?
Right. And this is something, the US car manufacturers are deeply alarmed at this because a lot of the parts, even of the US made cars, are manufactured elsewhere. So, you might have a car that you think is made in the United States, but actually a huge number of the parts that go into that come from elsewhere. And quite often the parts of the car will go backwards and forwards across the US-Mexico border in particular, or the US-Canada border as well, multiple times, with different bits being added on at different times. So it's not an easy solution. It's going to really, really put prices up. It's going to make things incredibly complicated. Trump seems to be saying that it's a simple way to get people to manufacture more in the United States, but the reality is that it would take years and years to do this. And in the short term, it's the consumers who will very much suffer.
I know Canada hit back strongly today, didn't they? I mean, when I chatted earlier to Benjamin Tallis, they are very much, and this is sort of an EU directive, going to stand up to Donald Trump. That is different to the UK approach. And of course, we are scrambling around. We're not scrambling around, but we are, tickling Donald Trump for a trade deal, and the clock is ticking on that. There's been various debate about the digital services tax, whether we take that away as a sweetener, or if Donald Trump does apply tariffs, do we increase that to sort of try and get some money back, I suppose, into the coffers? Any word over there on trade negotiations at all, Harriet?
Right. So no, you're right, Kate, in that Britain is taking much more of a, I suppose, wait and see type approach because they're really concerned about tariffs and they're saying that services account for so much more of their ties with the US. They are still sticking to this line that essentially that there is no deficit between the US and the UK. Trump has been quite vague about whether that argument resonates with him. He has said last week that he's going to be nice to some countries. That's what he said. Whether that means the UK, we don't know. But I think, he's so mercurial that it's very hard to tell what he's going to do. He says April the 2nd is Liberation Day. That's when he believes he's going to usher in a lot of these tariffs. So I think for most people, it's just wait and see what happens until then.
The latest on Signalgate, as we've all started calling it, for want of trying to explain the whole story in a word or two. In the last few minutes, a federal judge has ordered key Trump administration agencies to preserve messages sent on Signal from March the 11th to the 15th after that revelation that senior members of his administration were discussing war plans on the app. It was a target of the Houthis in Yemen, a successful target that took place during that period of time. Hence, agencies have been asked to preserve messages. This is significant, isn't it? Because bipartisan senators are going to oversee the military request. Are going to oversee the Pentagon investigation, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah. So there are multiple investigations that have been launched into this. I mean, some of it, Kate, quite frankly, is laughable. Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, he said that he wants an inquiry to find out how the heck Jeffrey Goldberg was added to this group chat. And then, of course, we have the screenshot, which is literally Houthi group chat, and it says Michael Waltz added you. So I don't think you need to be particularly
unless it wasn't the real Michael Waltz.
Well, indeed. And this will be potentially some of the argument, won't it? The NSA has confirmed that the discussion group was real. Whether there is some argument about who was actually using that phone at the time, that's when we'll find out. Another interesting thing, Kate, to mention is that Pam Bondi, who is the Attorney General, she has just said in the last few hours that there will not be a criminal inquiry launched into these leaks. And that's something that Jeff Goldberg actually has said he thinks is quite hypocritical, because if it was a more junior military officer or intelligence officer, there would certainly be more of a prosecutorial approach to this.
The private data of top security advisors to Donald Trump can be accessed online. That was a revelation from the German news magazine Der Spiegel yesterday, adding to this fallout. And I should clarify that bipartisan senators are overseeing the military request for a Pentagon investigation into the use of Signal app. Just to get that right, that is a request request for a Pentagon investigation. But meanwhile, it looks like data's being compromised, data and information sent by security advisors, certainly if that Der Spiegel story is correct. So this rumbles on. It's now has news organisations all over the world, casting the net widely on this, doesn't it?
Right. And in many ways, they made a rod for their own backs, because if you recall, it was Donald Trump who was obsessive about Hillary Clinton's emails, about the fact that she had a private email server. So he talked about how people like Hillary Clinton were unfit to handle classified information. A really key point of this all, Kate, is going to be whether those who were on the chat were using their government work devices, because if they were using their own personal iPhones, that's another really, really serious breach. And remember, one of them, Steve Witkoff, he was in Moscow at the time. So if he is using his own phone in Moscow to access these chats, that opens up a whole can of worms. So there's plenty more to find out, I think.
But so far, no one is on the hook for this. There are no suggestions anyone will lose their job.
No, I mean, Donald Trump privately is said to be actually furious with Mike Waltz, but he is very publicly rallying around him. The White House is downplaying this as much as they can. They say that there was no classified information shared, although we've all seen the message, haven't we? And how that could not be classified is pretty mind-boggling for most people. But again, there will be an official verdict on all of that.
Harriet, always good to speak to you. Thank you. Harriet Alexander there, US senior features reporter for The Times and The Sunday Times. That has been your Trump Dump. Cheers, Harriet.